Welcome to the believers, the ones who still believe in owning a home, not just for walls and a roof, but the American dream, alive and within reach. Here's to the ones who don't buy the lie that we're too different, too divided, too far gone. We know we've been here before in this country, and we know the path forward. The nation of homeowners isn't just a slogan, it's a solution to inequality, to instability, to division. And I'm not sure if I'm talking to one person or 100 people, but if you are with me, welcome to Mortgage Mondays. Brother Solomon, what's up, baby?
How you doing? I'm here.
Man, listen, I'm so excited to be here. We are about to engage in a fundamental game changer and a few things. One, I want to say thank you for being on this journey with me. You have been incredible, and I'm thankful for you, brother.
All right.
I truly am, man. You ready for this?
Yeah. Yeah.
You excited?
Yeah.
I got to also, because we run a national company, Nation of Homeowners, and I wasn't able to do this without the head of my marketing, Brother Bruce. Salute. Thank you to operations leader, D. Annette. Phone calls, they come in every single day. Her and her team with D. Annette and Linda, they make this possible. My name is Nick Goucher, and I'm the host of Nation of Homeowners. And every Monday, we'll be here going live between 6:30 or so. We're going to get that time right? And and you're going to be with us on this epic journey because I believe that America needs a homeownership revolution. And this is the first episode that we're going to do together. We're going to bump our heads, we're going to make some mistakes, but we're going to learn, we're going to grow, we're going to build an incredible movement. And after this episode, you're going to understand why the sense of urgency to build a revolution when it comes to home ownership in this country is so vital. I'm going to unpack a few things with you today, tell you what I'm seeing, why we see it, and if you give me some time, I'll make you a believer to join this movement, this crusade with us so we can change and transform America for the good. By and large, in this country, when we talk about, say, for example, the wealth disparity in America, it's easy, and it's also rooted in truth, to look at it through the lens of race as a challenge in this country when it comes to wealth inequality. And there's no way to get around it. You know, when you factor in centuries of both public and private market practices that have systematically removed and erased and did not engage with African Americans, minorities, women, for centuries. It's easy to, and understandably so, to point to this wealth gap on the basis through the lens of race. But I want to show you a perspective that I see and why I think this movement, this time is so important. If you look at this screen, for example, Solomon, if you can pull this up, please. It gives you a snapshot of the median wealth by race in this country. Median wealth simply represents that the majority of people in this group. And most of our conversation is centered around the black and white gap. And if you look at, for example, white families have a net wealth of $285,000, and black families, Solomon, $45,000, which is to say that white Americans have 6 times the wealth as black families, and Hispanic families are, right there, right? And then that begins to become the basis of the conversations that we have on how we solve the problem of wealth inequality in America. However, I want to give you a perspective that I see that provides maybe an elevated pitch, which is one, if you stay there, Solomon, go back to me if you can for a second.
Okay.
And we can look at 2 other things that perhaps get unaddressed. And that is one, Solomon, go back to it, brother, if you
Okay.
can for a second. Look at the Asian American community. They have not 6 times the wealth gap as black families. They have 12 times the wealth gap. Asian Americans have double the amount of wealth as white families. And we're going to unpack that in another episode down the line. But this is the lens that begins to create the conversation around race and wealth. But let me show you another perspective that has been in my mind in my space in lending, and that is the gap between the homeowner and the renter. So, for example, remember I said, right, the white and black wealth gap is 6 times. But if you look at the homeowner in America, which is to say that today homeowners have $35 trillion of equity. Okay, there's 84 million homeowners in America, which means that every homeowner roughly has about $400,000 in net worth. Now, Solomon, most people who I talk to who own homes say, Nick, I don't see that. I don't
Yeah.
see that well.
Yeah.
It's not in my pocket because many of us might have the equity on paper. We don't have it in cash. America, by and large, is illiquid, which means we don't have the capital in the bank account, but it is on paper when it comes to our net worth.
Right.
But a renter, Solomon, look at this screen. If you take all the renters of all races in America, what you will see is homeowners, they don't have 6 times the wealth gap, Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have 12 times the wealth gap. They don't have 25 times. They have 40 times the wealth as a renter, which means, by and large, that the wealth disparity in America today is no longer defined by race alone, but by real estate. The gap today that we want to talk about is that gap between the renter and the homeowner. And that perhaps is the basis of how we start this conversation, because I believe that perhaps is the challenge that sits in front of America today, is how do we re-engage and make it more possible and within reach for the average hard-working American family to own a home. But Solomon, we can't just stop there because, well, we can't, because wealth by itself perhaps is the larger premise of why most people want to buy a home. But Solomon, I'm going to unpack this with you guys for a second. Now, again, brother, I don't know if I have one person or just you and me.
Right.
But you know what? That's enough for me, man. You got me?
Yeah.
If it's you and me.
Yeah.
Because watch this. Beyond the wealth disparity and the wealth that homeownership can provide for the average American family to get a head start in life and those benefits, let's go deeper. Solomon, back to the screen if you can for a second. Because beyond the wealth, let's look at the health and wellness benefit between owning a home and being a renter. This is a study by Keeping Current Matters that said owning a home embodies the promise of individual autonomy. It's the aspiration of most American households. Homeownership allows households to accumulate wealth and social status and is the basis for a number of positive social, economic, family, and civic outcomes. What forever do they mean? Let's go deeper. This is a study by Harvard that came out many years ago. If you can increase homeownership by just 1%, Solomon, if you can get 1% more people to own than rent, according to their studies, you will reduce the annual cost of property crimes by victims. And the same increase in homeownership will reduce the yearly cost of violent crimes. Collectively, that would save America over $1 billion. Let's keep going. We did find significant relationship between high homeownership rates and neighborhoods with lower crime rates. Home ownership gives people more stability and security. By just increasing home ownership, one more looking here. By increasing home ownership by just 1%, you will reduce crime by $1 billion. Just 1%. Why? Because people now have a stake in their future. They no longer rent it. But let's go deeper. Because beyond that, Solomon, they set civic duties. Here's another study that came out a couple years ago. I'm not sure. It looks kind of blurry, but I'll read it to you. It's looked at, for example, midterm election outcomes. Okay, in 2022, and what they found out was that if you were a homeowner, nearly 60% of homeowners show up in their midterm elections, compared to renters, 37%. That's a gap of 21% more likely to civically engage, not just local, not just state, but in national. Why? Because that property gives you equity and a share in this country, and you feel like your voice matters because those policies affect the equity in your home. If you rent, by and large, you think, what's in it for me? Why do I care? By just increasing people to own a home, you would increase the voting block solidly by 21%.
Wow.
That's incredible. If I'm a politician, for example, and I'm thinking about how to engage a voting base, we should be talking about home ownership and making it possible and within reach and bringing it not just to some people, but to every hardworking family in America who want to strive, save, budget, and plan to do it. If you do that, you'd increase your block of people to feel they have a reason and they have a share why they want to vote. Solomon. We got to go deeper, though. We just get started. Because beyond that, look at the next screen, brother. This is a study by Habitat for Humanity. Stable home, better grades. There's a correlation between affordable home ownership and educational outcomes. Now, I want to take a second and perhaps give you some context around this, because growing up, my mother raised my brother and I. Single mom. She's 18 when she has us, and her whole purpose was to make sure we were safe, okay, and we can survive. Single mom who was 18 when she had me, didn't even finish high school at the time. Incredible work ethic, but we moved not one, not three, not five, not 10. From kindergartner to 12th grade, we moved 15 times.
Wow.
Now, imagine me for a second. Me and my brother, young African American kids growing up in South Central Los Angeles.
Yeah.
In every new neighborhood, what do we have to do? We have to
New
find a way to
friends,
adapt,
Do everything.
get new friends. When I'm going home and I'm bussing, I'm worrying about getting home safely. I'm worrying about how can I acclimate to this new environment. I'm not thinking about studying for my class
Right.
because I have other things on my mind. I had no stability. Families who have to rent and landlord increases the rent the following year. You have to pick up and go somewhere else. That is not stable for a child. I was that child. And I think about the power homeownership has for families and their kids. But Solomon, we gotta go deeper. We gotta go deeper.
Let's go deeper.
Let's go deeper. According to Trulia, kids are more likely to own a home if their parents did. Did you hear what I just said? Kids are more likely to own a home, which means this study by Michigan, they did a study on this too. They did a 50-year study on this. If you were a child who grows up in a home that your parents own, you are 3 times as likely to own a home at 27 compared to a child who grew up in a home their family rented. Why? Because at the kitchen table, you saw a family do a budget. You saw your mother and your father depend on themselves to fix their plumbing issues. They didn't call the landlord.
Right.
They were the landlord. By just owning a home and letting your child see you as the example of living in that home, owning that home, talking about the importance of home ownership and living it, you are 3 times as likely to help your kid become a homeowner. That is incredible enough. But by and large, when you think about, or perhaps when I think about home ownership, it's something I say all the time. If you own stocks, for example, in America,
Hmm.
you own a Nike stock, you own a piece of a company. But if you own a home, you own a piece of America. And by and large, you own a piece of your future. That is the beauty in a person who wants to achieve for themselves stability, independence, status for themselves. This is a concept, by the way, called Maslow's theory.
All right.
Okay, Abraham Maslow. So he's a psychologist. He came up with a concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which says human beings have 5 motivated factors as humans. Number one is to what? Survive.
Right.
Do we have enough food? Okay, to survive. Number two is what? Shelter. So it's safety. Number three, we want to belong to a tribe, belonging, community. Number four, self esteem, which is why, according to Habitat for Humanity, 74% of homeowners who go from renting to homeowning say their self esteem goes up.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Because they achieved a milestone in their life that they own a part of their future. But here's the question: what happens to Americans if they believe that owning a home, owning their future, is out of reach? I'll give you an example. Solomon, next screen, please. According to Citibank, look at this for a second. 67% of Americans now believe home ownership is unrealistic milestone for young people. Solomon, come, hold on. Scotsman's Guide. Nearly 2/3 of Gen Z members think they'll never own a home in their lifetime. Now, think about that for a second. Okay, you're Gen Z. So you're born between, say, 96 and 2010. Okay, so the oldest living Gen Zer perhaps is 29.
Yeah.
Okay, almost 30. Which from 1945 to 1995, the average age of a first time home buyer in America was about 27 to 30.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm 29. Okay. My name is Michael. Michael grows up in a home where his parents say, son, you can live the American dream. What is the American dream? If you work hard, you have education, you go to college, you graduate, that diploma, that's your ticket.
Yeah.
And Michael says, I can do this. He works real hard, he studies, he goes to college, he gets that degree. The jobs aren't calling, not like they used to. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. So he's going to work not one job, 2 jobs. He'll get a job not in his career field. He might have majored in sociology or history, African American studies,
Yeah.
right? No one gave him a pathway that says, hey, we should perhaps go to a school and focus on a degree that the market values. You know, not just go to college, but actually have a pathway that you know is going to produce a high rewarding income. Different podcast. That's coming down, by the way, soon.
Okay.
Right? But he works a second job because he's a hustler. He's doing DoorDash, he's doing Lyft. This guy's like, I'm going to figure this out. He gets that paycheck on 2 jobs after he pays his taxes. The man does not have enough money to pay for his own rent. He lives at home still. You know what happens after a while? Michael gets pretty pissed because now he's 29, he's 28. He says to himself, this is some BS. Solomon, this is BS. Yes, I have 75 grand of student loan debt. I got 5 grand in my bank account. And no matter how hard I work, no matter how many hours I work, this dream of owning a home having a family, it's hard as hell.
Yeah.
So what happens? What happens to Gen Z's and Michael? Look at the next screen, Solomon. What happens next? American pride slips to a new low. Look at it, but let's look at it by generation. This is interesting. Because if you were born before 1946, you grew up in the Great Depression, Solomon.
Yeah.
You understand that? 83% were still extremely proud to be patriots. They believed in the idea, the Horsch Alger theory that, you could work hard, self-determination, and you were going to figure out a way to make it, have a family, and be just fine. In the Great Depression, boomers, Gen X, millennials. That's me. What's up, guys? What's up, gang? And look at Gen Z. 41%, Solomon. It's the lowest number ever recorded in the history of Americans. In the greatest nation in the whole world. So much prosperity around us. So hard to grasp. Can't touch it. I see it on social media. I can't really feel it. So you know what? I'm pretty pissed. And I'm no longer happy to be an American. But that's not just Gen Z, Solomon. Look, another study here.
Yeah.
61% of renters worry they'll never own a home. What do they say? No matter how hard I work, I'll never be able to afford a home I love. 61%. Now, there's 130 million households, okay, in America, of which 84 million, Solomon, are homeowners, okay, 65%. So you're talking about 50 million renters, okay, in America who own a home. Yeah. Solomon, 61%? That's almost 30 million families who think that this experiment called the Great American Project, where there's so much prosperity around us all, I can't feel it, I can't see it, I work 2 jobs, still can't get ahead. After I pay my groceries, after I pay my kids' child care costs, I pay my insurance costs, I don't have nothing left.
Yeah.
And how can you blame them? I mean, look at this next slide for a second. This is incredible. This is incredible. In 1980, the average age of a home buyer was 31. Solomon, brother, they bought a home when rates were 18%.
Yeah.
And they were 31. And look at this graph. If people can see the video, if it's the audio that you're on, if it's the podcast that you're on, 31, 1980, rates were 18%. Now, the median age of home buyers is 56. You were born in the 1960s. You were born during the Vietnam War. That is remarkable.
Yeah.
That is fascinating that we've allowed it to get this far removed. Now, within context, this is really important. I'll pull up this screen here because the Mortgage Monday lives are inspired by what could be done to restore this American dream.
Right.
Okay. But 85% of my day is here doing this. Okay. I own a mortgage company. We're a mortgage lender. And most of our time is talking to clients, agents, partners, financial partners on how we can help people today own a home. Okay? Because I'm giving you this deeper context because we're a country of 300 plus million people. And we're talking about 3 million people might own a home this year. 3 million. Most of them are not first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
They're move-up buyers. People who've already, so these are homeowners buying more homes.
Right.
You got me?
Yeah.
They're taking their equity out of their property. There's a lot for most people. They use it to buy new property. Okay? But it still leaves out first-time home buyers in their 30s, right? By and large. However, it's worth mentioning that if you are in the market and you can buy a home today, look at this, nearly half of home sellers. So if you can own a home, and most of our clients, obviously, we help them put in the homes every single day. As we're talking today, we helped a few clients to close escrow today, and they're going to be on the podcast pretty soon too. But there is a remarkable amount of opportunity if you are able to own a home today. And again, most of the content that you'll see that we'll push out on this channel is going to be how we can help those people right now. But by and large, it won't be enough. We need to have many, by the millions, more families be able to afford to own a home. And here perhaps is the biggest challenge of it all. Oh, this is before I go to challenge, I guess. So this gives you an example. I actually pulled this up came recently. For those who can see this, I got this message from a real estate agent not too long ago. And look at this text that I got in the morning. Their buyer, talk about seller concessions to help. They're willing to give up to $45,000 in credit to help my buyer who wanted to buy a property lower the interest rate by buying it down.
Wow.
45 grand. Again, when you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in your property, you think whatever I have to do to unlock that capital, I'll do it. Because the reality is that Americans today have $18.6 trillion. I'll say it again. Trillion. $18.6 trillion in consumer debt. We have the least amount of savings that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to 1945 to 2022, the average American household saves about 9% of their money in savings.
Mm-hmm.
That's 80-year history. Last couple years, 3%, 4%. 10 million people work 2 full-time jobs to make ends meet. 78% of Americans today are paycheck to paycheck, which means with all of the job losses recently that we're seeing,
Yeah.
Amazon 30,000, UPS 45,000. These
Yeah.
numbers are incredible. Most of these people, these hardworking Americans, they don't have more than 22 days of savings.
Right.
That's a problem. So if you are a seller, you have equity, and if you're a buyer in many markets, there's an advantage for that. A lot of our content is going to be showing you how you can do that. But for this case, I'm making a larger plea here. Okay, and here's the plea, because if you look at this is a index, okay, that basically asks the question: how affordable is a home today? And if you look, for example, Solomon, they can see this, right? Can they see this?
They can see it.
It's pretty small.
It's small though.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. All right, so we have the way this works is if you look at, for example, if you live in the West, okay, so if you're on the West Coast. It says the affordability index is 72%. All right, so here's how they do this. What they say is that if it's 100%, so if it's 100%, that means that household income in America versus how much you should pay towards your mortgage payment, if it's no more than 30% of your mortgage, then you can afford it. It's 100%. Right? You have 100% of income to buy it. If you go below that number, that means it's out of reach. So 72.9 from last month means that we are in the least affordable market since 1995. 30 years. Brother, 95, what was that? I was like 11. MJ just came back. I remember, big dog. I remember that. I remember. I'm an MJ guy.
Oh, man.
I'm an MJ guy. 95 against the Pacers. He came back. He shot 7 for 19 that game. He had 19 points. He had no free throws. I think. Remember his layup though that he made when his first bucket. Then he came back with that double nickel at the Garden when he had on them J's. Come on, baby. I don't remember. I remember that. 95, right?
Right.
Now here's the question. Now I'm gonna do this on a different podcast. But the question was, this was under President Bill Clinton. What did Clinton do? What policies did he unleash in the marketplace to make homeownership more affordable? We're going to find out.
Okay.
Different podcast. but I'm giving you the context on why America needs a homeownership revolution. And I want to give you an example on this so it makes more sense, okay? So if you are buying a home today across the country, okay, the average median home price is $415,000, okay?
All right.
Now, with the mortgage payment, looking at the full payment, so mortgage payment, property taxes, home insurance, the whole kit caboodle on a, let's say on a 5% down. So you buy a property for 15, you got 20 grand for a down payment, let's just say, right? Well, 30% should be the max amount of your income that goes towards your mortgage payment.
Right.
Make sense? So at 415, right, that mortgage payment, all in, is about $3,200. Okay, which means for you to afford that property, you need $120,000
Right.
to own a home, to afford to own a home. Okay, today, what do you think the average American household income is?
I'm guessing.
Don't Google. Just take a guess. Take a guess.
40,000.
Oh no, it's $84,000.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
median, right? So what that means is, for context, to look at this housing affordability index, that means that right now you could afford a mortgage payment of $2,100. The payment is $3,200. Make sense?
Yeah.
So there's really only three things that you could do, okay, to as a policy to make this more possible. Number one, increase income from 84 to 120.
Right.
Okay. Number two, lower the purchase price from $415,000 to $300,000. Number three, probably more possible, more within reach, lower interest rates from 6.5 to 4%.
Right.
If the rates drop down to 4%, that same person's income would have the buying power to buy that property.
Right.
That's why rates play an important role in making homeownership more affordable in this country. But that's the context here. Now, why does that matter? Because when you begin to build a nation of renters where you don't have a stake in your future, that pride that comes with owning a home never shows up. Not only that, but you are given up. Remember, who was that? Hey, listen, it's a podcast. It's all good. They're with us. They're with us. So it's gonna go on YouTube. This is my guy Solomon. Come on, guys. This is incredible. This is so incredible. It's so good. If there's one person there, I'm not even sure if anybody's even listening. I have no clue. But you'll find this over time, because I promise you this, movements, hear me out,
Okay.
don't need followers. They need conviction and belief.
Right.
You have conviction, you have belief, you can inspire people. And we are going to do that on this show. Now, back to my point. Can I make my point? Is that okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Any more alarms going on I should know about?
Hope not.
All right, cool. This is my brother. So, when you live in a country when 88% of the stock market is owned by 10% of Americans, you have a growing wealth gap in this country. Okay. When you have the average American I talked about who makes 84 grand a year, they have to spend over 55% of their income to their mortgage payment. That's unheard of. It's happened once before, 1982. Rates were 18%. So we've been here before, only once. But what happens is, next screen, America becomes divided. Not just on key values, but on this idea of the American dream. On the question, does capitalism, does it work? The question people are asking is, how could it work? If the idea that citizens and businesses own the means of production in this country, it only works if it's within reach. Because if not, the experiment doesn't work. Now, it's important to say that Americans, many times, we've been here. For those of you, you'll learn this over time on the podcast. I love history
Mm-hmm.
because history is a great indicator of the future. Mark Twain says it doesn't always repeat, but it sure does rhyme. Bada boom. Mark Twain quote. I like that too. But if you go back, you can look. You can go back and look at 1900s. 1900. There was a presidential campaign between President McKinley McKinley and William Jennings Bryan, and there was a division there because this is the first time that titans in America like Rockefeller,
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Morgans, and the Carnegies were able to buy an election. They were able to control narratives around campaigning, and there was a division between the working man and the titans of industry at that time. 1907. Okay. The Great Panic when banks shut down, which created the central bank to help cover exposure to banks not having enough money to pay the people who have money in the bank.
Right.
1907. We were here in 29, the Great Depression, Great Division. 1980s, U.S. I think it's House Speaker, former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, Democrat, President Reagan. There was a class issue between globalism and corporatism having too much access to power
Right.
and wealth. We've been here multiple times. And every time we've been in a gridlock, by and large, we have found our way out of it. So the question becomes, what are we to do? Well, that's why this podcast exists. Because every Monday when we're here, we're going to think through different policies, different strategies that could be unleashed to bring home ownership within reach for every American willing to strive forward. There's a lot we can do. So much we can do. If you're here with me on Mondays, I'll share with you what I think we could do about it. But what I can say is America, by and large, through all its faults and its ugly past, is a great country. It's a great country. And no country is without its past. Humanity, human history is a dark history. It's very ugly. But the question becomes, every generation has an obligation to pay it forward for those who paid it forward for us.
Yeah.
And if you go back and if you look at, let's talk about, you can clearly see that I'm an African American man, proud, love my history, love the story of our people, but I'm also a proud American. I love my country. And I come from generations of people who never gave up on me, never gave up on their dream for me. When they could not live their dream, they prayed, they believed, they fought that one day that dream would be within reach for someone like me. Here we are, the great inheritors of this dream. And guess what? I have a son. I have 3 daughters. You probably have kids too. And I have a responsibility to do my part to move this country to be better for my kids. And so do you. That's why we're here. We are going to restore the dream of owning a home. So again, here to you, the believers, the ones who still believe in owning a home, not just four walls and a roof, but the American dream, alive and within reach. Here's to you who have not given up, who don't buy the lie that we're too different, too divided, too far gone. You know we've been here before, and there's a pathway forward. Nation of Homeowners, we are not just a slogan. We are a solution, a movement. And together, you and me, we're going to make history. It's going to be incredible. They will no doubt write books about this movement, Solomon. Maybe even a movie. Solomon, I might produce it.
Okay.
Welcome to Mortgage Mondays Live, where the dream is alive. It's within reach. And it starts with you.